were heard in Jerusalem after the defense ministry declared a state of emergency. The blast took place after US President Donald Trump warned that Israel could soon strike Iran's nuclear sites. President Trump has called National Security Cabinet meeting as well. So this is the latest that we are getting from West Asia. In the latest, Israeli Air Force carried out airstrikes on Iran with explosions heard across Iran's capital, Tehran. From what we do know so far, the aim was striking the Iranian nuclear program and in response to the Iranian regime's ongoing aggression against Israel. That's the latest that we do know right now. For more on this, we're now being joined by our correspondent Susan Tehrani from New York. Susan, thank you so much for joining us. This is the latest that is coming in. To call it an escalation at this point would be an understatement. What can you tell us, Susan? We also know that Donald Trump has called a National Security Cabinet meeting as well. What can we expect?
That's right, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio is part of the individuals that are in that meeting. He did say in a statement that the United States was, quote unquote, not involved in strikes against Iran, and our top priority is protecting American forces in the region. He added that Israel advised us that they believe this action was necessary for its self-defense. He ended his statement with a warning to Iran against any form of retaliation aimed at the U.S. forces in the region, saying, quote, "Let me be clear, Iran should not target U.S. interests or personnel." Now, we're also hearing that a U.S. defense official said that air defense systems were being deployed to protect the more than 40,000 American troops scattered at more than a dozen military bases in the region. But he declined to say what the role the United States was taking in Israel's defense in the event of an Iranian retaliation. Now, we are hearing unconfirmed reports that Iran has started in earnest its retaliation against Israel. We don't have that confirmed, but the United States wanted to make sure that it was clear that these were unilateral strikes by Israel against the Islamic Republic of Iran. Again, we don't know if the United States will play a role and if Israel's defense in the event of Iranian retaliation or not. This is the latest that we have here. Of course, it's important to note that some 40,000 U.S. military personnel are stationed in the Persian Gulf and elsewhere in the Middle East. These forces are to defend American bases and interests in the region, including the defense of Israel. Now, the aircraft carrier Carl Vinson, armed with F-35 fighter jets, is currently in the Arabian Sea as we speak. But those forces were on high alert on Thursday, which is today, and this was in preparation for this possible retaliatory strike that may take place by Iran against Israel. Military planners were weighing how and when to move some military aircraft out of the immediate area, this in order to reduce the chance of them being struck by retaliatory fire from Iran.
Right, Susan. What we have also been seeing, Susan, why this also may come as a surprise is that we've been seeing, well, not really a surprise, allow me to correct myself, but we've been seeing that Donald Trump has been trying to keep Israel at bay when it comes to Iran, especially considering that the United States and Iran have been engaged in negotiations as well. They haven't yielded any concrete results yet, but that is the scenario on ground. In light of that, these Israeli strikes, how do you think things are going to pan out between the three now?
Yeah, it's important to know that President Trump and his most senior aides knew about these strikes. They knew it was likely coming. This is according to the New York Times. Whether or not Donald Trump tried to deter Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from taking action, again, that's a very gray area. We've heard from the president today. He said that these negotiations between Iran and the United States, the nuclear talks, were going to happen this weekend with Iran's foreign minister. Now, after this strike, whether or not the U.S.-Iran negotiation is going to continue happening, that's yet to be seen. A lot of it depends on those negotiations, but it is very clear, I think, to Israeli officials and United States officials, from what we know so far, that Iran will indeed retaliate in some way and strike back, perhaps a lot sooner this time than previous. If you remember, the last time Israel struck Iran, Iran took about 12 days to retaliate. That doesn't seem to be the case. It seems the situation is unfolding a lot quicker than before. So that's why perhaps Israel and Tel Aviv and Jerusalem are all on a state of high alert and a state of emergency.
All right. Well, Susan, thank you so much for bringing us the latest on this. Of course, we'll continue to track all developments closely on this. All right, important story coming out of West Asia. The Israeli Air Force has conducted airstrikes on Iran with explosions being heard across Iran's capital, Tehran. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion against the Iranian threat to Israel's survival. Israeli pilots struck many targets in Iran, including the Iran nuclear enrichment program, targeting its main enrichment facility in Natanz. Israel also struck the heart of Iran's ballistic missile program. Netanyahu said, "We are at a decisive moment in Israel's history, and this operation will continue for as many days as it takes."
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program. We targeted Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz. We targeted Iran's leading nuclear scientists working on the Iranian bomb. We also struck at the heart of Iran's ballistic missile program.
The IAEA spokesperson said Israel launched a precise and integrated preemptive strike based on high-quality intelligence with the aim of striking the Iranian nuclear program and in response to the Iranian regime's ongoing aggression against Israel. Dozens of Air Force aircraft completed the opening strike, which included attacking dozens of military targets, including nuclear targets in various areas of Iran. Sources suggest that the strike has targeted Iranian leaders from the IRGC, but it is yet to be confirmed. Israel has declared a state of emergency, warning of retaliatory action from Tehran. Defense Minister Israel Katz said Israel conducted a preemptive strike against Iran and that a missile and drone attack against the state of Israel and its civilian population is expected in the immediate future. Air raid sirens sounded in Jerusalem after the Defense Ministry declared a state of emergency. The blast took place after US President Donald Trump warned that Israel could soon strike Iran's nuclear sites. Trump has called National Security Cabinet meeting as well. And for more on this, we're now being joined by correspondent Susan Teherani from New York. Susan, let's first discuss the circumstances under which this has happened. Of course, Israel is saying that this is with the aim of hitting its Iranian nuclear power, as well as in response to Iran's aggression towards Israel. That being said, we do know that with this, tensions are only going to escalate further in the region. As we already know, Israel has preemptively declared a state of emergency. So there is a high threat perception from Iran in terms of retaliatory strikes as well. What can you tell us, Susan?
Right, and a critical question is whether the U.S. will play an extensive role in defending Israel from an Iranian counterattack should it happen. If you remember, the Biden administration did that when those countries exchanged blows last year, and we were covering it. Secretary of State Marco Rubio made no mention of such a role in that statement that he released tonight, saying that our top priority is protecting American forces in the region. He tried to make clear that this is a unilateral Israel action. And some prominent Trump supporters are already calling for the United States to stay out of this conflict. But the question is, without U.S. assistance, Israel's defenses could be overwhelmed by a barrage of Iranian ballistic missiles, and of course that would lead to major damage within Israeli cities. And then the question also remains, what happens between those nuclear talks that even President Trump confirmed hours ago, saying that his top negotiators were due to meet with Iran's foreign minister in Oman this weekend. So that seems, those are the questions that many are asking. I do also want to say that we are getting a response from Democrats. Senator Jack Reed of Rhode Island, he's a top Democrat on the Armed Service Committee. He criticized Israel's strike. He said, quote, Israel's alarming decision to launch airstrikes on Iran is a reckless escalation that risks igniting regional violence. These strikes threaten not only the lives of innocent civilians, but the stability of the entire Middle East. We also learned that Secretary of State Marco Rubio just today, hours ago, ordered the State Department to form a new Middle East task force, drawing from many different offices of his agency. This is to handle the needs arising from this crisis in the region. And also the purpose of the task force is to be in contact with U.S. citizens in the region during these hostilities.
Absolutely, Susan. Now, of course, this is an alarming development, and it's going to be a difficult balancing act for the United States as well. It remains to be seen whether it can still continue to vehemently back Israel as it has in West Asia for so long, and what sort of an impact this will have going forward on the nuclear talks as well. That being said, of course, we'll continue to track all the developments closely with you there.
ساعت الان 3:37 دقیقه ورودی
All right, these are also the live visuals that we're getting from Iran. This is Tehran. You can see buildings ablaze here. This in the aftermath of the Israeli forces which conducted an airstrike on Iran with multiple explosions being heard across the capital Tehran. And these are the visuals from Tehran that we're getting right now on your screens. You can see their buildings ablaze. People are out on the streets. This is part of Israel's Operation Rising Lion. Israeli pilots struck many targets in Iran, including Iranian nuclear enrichment program and targeting its main enrichment facility in Natanz, as well as explosions which were heard in Tehran. And these are the live visuals that we're getting from Tehran.
ساعت الان 3:37 دقیقه ورودی فرحزاده پایین.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons. In recent years, Iran has produced enough highly enriched uranium for 9 atom bombs. 9. In recent months, Iran has taken steps that it has never taken before, steps to weaponize this enriched uranium. And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival. 80 years ago, the Jewish people were the victims of a Holocaust perpetrated by the Nazi regime. Today, the Jewish state refuses to be a victim of a nuclear Holocaust perpetrated by the Iranian regime. Now, as Prime Minister, I've made it clear time and again, Israel will never allow those who call for our annihilation to develop the means to achieve that goal. Tonight, Israel backs those words with action. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program. We targeted Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz. We targeted Iran's leading nuclear scientists working on the Iranian bomb. We also struck at the heart of Iran's ballistic missile program. Last year, Iran fired 300 ballistic missiles at Israel. Each of these missiles carries a ton of explosives and threatens the lives of hundreds of people. Soon, those missiles could carry a nuclear payload, threatening the lives not of hundreds, but of millions. Iran is gearing up to produce 10,000 of those ballistic missiles within 3 years. Now just imagine 10,000 tons of TNT landing on a country the size of New Jersey. This is an intolerable threat. It too must be stopped. Iran is now working on what it calls the new plan to destroy Israel. You see, the old plan failed. Iran and its proxies tried to encircle Israel with a ring of fire and to attack us with the horrible attack of October 7th. But the people of Israel, the soldiers of Israel, rose like lions to defend our country. We crushed Hamas, we devastated Hezbollah, we hit Iranian proxies in Syria and Yemen. And when Iran directly attacked us twice last year, we struck back inside Iran itself. Yet in defending ourselves, we also defend others. We defend our Arab neighbors. They too have suffered from Iran's campaign of chaos and carnage. Our actions against Iran's proxy Hezbollah led to the establishment of a new government in Lebanon and the collapse of Assad's murderous regime in Syria. The peoples of those two countries now have a chance for a different future, a better future. So too do the brave people of Iran, and I have a message for them. Our fight is not with you. Our fight is with the brutal dictatorship that has oppressed you for 46 years. I believe that the day of your liberation is near. And when that happens, the great friendship between our two ancient peoples will flourish once again. I want to assure the civilized world, we will not let the world's most dangerous regime get the world's most dangerous weapons. And Iran plans to give those weapons, nuclear weapons, to its terrorist proxies. That would make the nightmare of nuclear terrorism all too real. The increasing range of Iran's ballistic missiles would bring that nuclear nightmare to the cities of Europe and eventually to America. Remember, Iran calls Israel the small Satan. It calls America the great Satan. And this is why for decades, it's led millions in the chants of death to Israel and death to America. Today, Israel is responding to those genocidal calls with action and with a call of our own. Long live Israel and long live America. Our action will help make the world a much safer place. I want to thank President Trump for his leadership in confronting Iran's nuclear weapons program. He has made clear time and again that Iran cannot have a nuclear enrichment program. Today, it is clear that Iran is just buying for time. It refuses to agree to this basic requirement of peaceful nations. That is why we have no choice but to act, and act now. The hardest decision any leader has to make is to thwart a danger before it is fully materialized. Nearly a century ago, facing the Nazis, a generation of leaders failed to act in time. They were paralyzed by the horrors of World War I. They were determined to avoid war at all costs, and they got the worst war ever. They adopted a policy of appeasement. They closed their eyes and ears to all the warning signs. That failure to act resulted in World War II, the deadliest war in history. It claimed the lives of 60 million, including 6 million Jews, a third of my people. After that war, the Jewish people and the Jewish state vowed, never again. Well, never again is now. Today, Israel has shown that we have learned the lessons of history. When enemies vow to destroy you, believe them. When enemies build weapons of mass death, stop them. As the Bible teaches us, when someone comes to kill you, rise and act first. This is exactly what Israel has done today. We have risen like lions to defend ourselves. Over 3,000 years ago, Moses gave the people of Israel a message that has steeled their resolve ever since. Be strong and courageous, he said. Today, our strong and courageous soldiers and people stand together to defend ourselves against those who seek our destruction. And by defending ourselves, we defend many others, and we roll back a murderous tyranny. Generations from now, history will record that our generation stood its ground, acted in time, and secured our common future. May God bless Israel. May God bless the forces of civilization everywhere. Thank you.
All right, on our top focus from West Asia, Iranian state media has confirmed killing of Revolutionary Guards Chief Major General Hossein Salami in Israeli strikes. This is the latest that we're getting right now.
Well, the state TV reported fire and smoke was seen at IRGC General Command headquarters in Pirozi Street in the east of Tehran. And Iranian state media is also saying that Israeli strikes on residential buildings in the Iranian capital killed a number of civilians, including children.
Apart from that, blasts were heard in the Natanz city in Iran's central province of Isfahan, where a key nuclear site is located. This is Israeli air forces had conducted airstrikes on Iran, with explosions being heard across Iran's capital, Tehran.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said moments ago that Israel launched Operation Rising Lion against the Iranian threat to Israel's survival. Israeli pilots struck many targets in Iran, including Iran nuclear enrichment program, targeting its main enrichment facility in Natanz. Now, Israel has also struck the heart of Iran's ballistic missile program. Netanyahu said, "We are at a decisive moment in Israel's history, and this operation will continue for as many days as it takes."
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program. We targeted Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz. We targeted Iran's leading nuclear scientists working on the Iranian bomb. We also struck at the heart of Iran's ballistic missile program.
The IDF spokesperson says Israel launched a precise and integrated preemptive strike based on high-quality intelligence with the aim of striking the Iranian nuclear program and in response to the Iranian regime's ongoing aggression against Israel.
Well, dozens of Air Force aircraft completed the opening strike, which included attacking dozens of military targets, which included nuclear targets in various areas of Iran. Now, sources suggest that the strike has targeted Iranian leaders from the IRGC, but it is yet to be confirmed.
Now, Israel has declared a state of emergency, warning of retaliatory action from Tehran. Defense Minister Israel Katz said Israel conducted a preemptive strike against Iran and that a missile and drone attack against the state of Israel and its civilian population is expected in the immediate future.
Well, air raid sirens sounded in Jerusalem after the Defense Ministry declared a state of emergency. The blast took place after US President Donald Trump warned that Israel could soon strike Iran's nuclear sites. Now, President Trump has called National Security Meeting of the Cabinet.
Now, to discuss this further, we're now being joined by Adrian Kalmel from New York. He's a fellow at Arabian Peninsula Institute, terrorism and Middle Eastern scholar, as well as the author of the forthcoming book on Hezbollah. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA. Always a pleasure to have you. Let me just begin by asking first what your assessment of these latest strikes by Israel are. In your assessment, what do you think this is going to result with?
What I expected, well, thank you for having me, first of all. What I expect from this is that this is going to throw the regime into complete disarray. The nuclear program was something that was, Khamenei believed was critical to the survival of the regime. That's why he would not give up on the enrichment or the reprocessing. And that necessitated the Israelis to take out these strikes. Because they are getting too close to was the weaponization, the militarization of their highly enriched uranium. So what I believe this will do, I mean, this is still early stages, you have to remember that the Iranian people have been robbed, stolen from, oppressed, and that money has gone into the nuclear program, or it's gone into the pockets of IRGC commanders, etc. What I expect is that this will almost be a dog whistle of sorts, where the Iranian people, I expect, and we're talking about 90 million people, are going to come back and try and take back their country.
Right, and we know, and this is what we can anticipate from the conversation that's going forward, that Iran had already warned Trump that if we witness Israeli strikes, it is going to hold Washington directly responsible. And now in the wake of, we're expecting these retaliatory strikes from Iran, Israel is already bracing by closing down the schools and airspace. The big question is, what do we expect going forward? Because it's already jeopardized the talks between Tehran and Washington about the nuclear enrichment.
Right.
So what's
also, given the fact that the Revolutionary Guards Chief Major General Hossein Salami has been confirmed killed in the strikes as well.
Salami as well. Okay. Yeah. Well, what was supposed to happen over the weekend in Oman, those discussions, I didn't expect them to go anywhere. Last night, Steve Witkoff, who was kind of doing the mixed messaging and not giving a clear message, he came down and said, no reprocessing, no enrichment. So I do believe that there was a wink and a nod from the Trump administration. I don't believe Israel completely acted alone in this. I believe that Trump had seen that negotiations had been completely exhausted. Khamenei was unwilling to give up this program to enrich and to reprocess. And let me just say that any country, every country in the world, if the Islamic Republic reprocessed and was able to enrich uranium, they would be, and as they say, they don't want a nuclear weapon, they would be the first country in the world that has those capabilities but doesn't have a nuclear weapon. So their option was always to buy, if they wanted a peaceful nuclear program, to buy it, to purchase it on the open market, just as every other country does. But they chose not to, because ultimately it was a movement towards the bomb, and that's what the Israelis decided to take out. And the ballistic missiles, that's taking out the second strike capabilities. Trump was warned, we've been warned that we'll be held directly responsible and that the Islamic Republic will respond. Yeah, absolutely. We fully expected that. But there's been a lot of shaping exercises that have been taking place. We also have to remember that the Air Force, the Islamic Republic, their Air Force, the fighters that they have to carry out any attacks, they can get to Israel, but they can't get back. They can't refuel. So all they have are ballistic missiles and drones. And the drone factories were targeted in the last couple of days. There's been targeting in Lebanon. There was targeting in Yemen as well, in anticipation of this second strike that will be coming from the Islamic Republic. But we have to remember back when they did this before, after the assassination of Hania, and after they hit the Damascus annex, the Islamic Republic launched a series of volleys. One was 200 projectiles. The other one, I think, was 700 to 800 projectiles, and they didn't do any damage. They ended up killing 2 innocent civilians that were actually Arabs. So they don't have the capabilities and the capacity. They've got a lot of bluster right now, and over the last bunch of years, they've been using the nuclear blackmail card, and that's been the only leverage that they had, especially after Hezbollah.
Right now, of course, from what we are hearing from the Israeli side as well, Netanyahu has very clearly announced that this will go on till it's over. To what end is really the question. He's also announced that the targets were military commanders, facilities, scientists. Would it be a stretch then to call this an all-out war?
Yeah, it would be a stretch to call it an all-out war, because we're not going to see ground mobilization. We're not going to see troops moving in there. What we're seeing are precision strikes, one, to take out those capabilities, the nuclear facilities. Number 2, taking out the individuals who run the military, who will call those second strikes, the key individuals such as Salami, and also hitting those ballistic missile sites, hitting those areas. So I don't see it as being a full-fledged war. This is a degrading. This first phase obviously looks a lot like shock and awe. It was a big punch in the nose for the Islamic Republic, but this is going to continue, and they're going to continue to degrade to the point where I expect that the Iranian people will come back and take back their country.
All right, Mr. Calmel, thank you so much for joining us on World Day. It's always a pleasure to have you with us, and thank you so much for your insights on this.
Thank you.
Well, Iran state TV says that Israel hit Natanz nuclear site and says no sign of nuclear contamination following an Israeli attack on Natanz nuclear site.
So this is the latest that we're getting right now. Armed Forces Chief of Staff Bagheri was in the war room, and this is the latest that is coming from there. Iranian state TV has said that Bagheri is alive in the war room. It says that Israel hit the Natanz nuclear site. Till now, there is no reports of any sort of nuclear contamination. This is what we do know. This, as you know, comes in the aftermath of Israel's Rising Lion operation that it carried out on Iranian nuclear power, as well as in retaliation to Iranian aggression. For now, we do know that there is no sign of nuclear contamination here. This as Israel was aiming to attack Iran's nuclear power. So the Iranian state media had earlier also confirmed the killing of Revolutionary Guards Chief Major General Hossein Salami in the Israeli strikes. The state TV has now reported that the Armed Forces Chief of Staff Bagheri is alive, and they've also mentioned that the Natanz nuclear site was hit. For now, there are no reports of any nuclear contamination in the area. Earlier, we were also getting visuals from Tehran, where we saw how Israeli strikes on residential buildings in the Iranian capital. A number of civilians have been killed, including children. We are yet to get the numbers, the updated numbers. Blasts were heard in Natanz city, Iran's central province of Isfahan, where a key nuclear site is located. And as per Iranian state media, there are no signs of any nuclear contamination. And of course, there were multiple explosions which were heard in capital Tehran as well. These are the visuals from Tehran, as you can see.
And this is the latest we're getting, that Israel has hit Natanz nuclear site, and it says that there's no sign of nuclear contamination following an Israeli attack on Natanz's nuclear site. Iran state TV has also said that Armed Forces Chief of Staff Bagheri is alive in war room. Now, this is the latest that we're getting. And of course, it comes on the heels of the Iranian state media, which has also confirmed killing of the Revolutionary Guards Chief Major General Hossein Salami in Israeli strikes. From what we're seeing and the videos that have surfaced, fire and smoke was seen at the IRGC General Command headquarters in Firozi Street in the east of Tehran.
All right, so far the big developments from West Asia are as such. Netanyahu has said that he will carry out strikes and will carry out this operation for as long as it may be required. Iranian media has reported that the country is preparing to declare a war on Israel, and the IDF has urged Israelis to take shelter in anticipation of a retaliation. There is an emergency in place. Of course, this comes as the United States and Iran were engaging in the negotiations on the nuclear talks which had been going on, though it didn't yield any significant results so far. Those were underway as well.
And Netanyahu has also said that they will carry the strike for as long as it may be needed. And Iranian media reports the country is preparing to declare a war on Israel. Well, IDF urges Israelis to take shelter in anticipation of retaliation in terms of missiles and drone attack. And also in the anticipation, schools have been shut across the country on Friday, along with the Israeli airspace that's also been closed. Meanwhile, Trump is conducting a security meeting. We're yet to get more updates on that. But meanwhile, Netanyahu has very clearly reiterated that it will go on for as long as it's required, and there's no sign of backing down as of right now.
All right, this is an alarming development that is coming in from West Asia. We also know that Iranian state media has confirmed the killing of Revolutionary Guards Chief Major General Hossein Salami in the Israeli strikes as part of Rising Lion operations. Fire and smoke was seen in the IRGC Central Command headquarters in the Firozi Street in east of Tehran. Right now, new blast has been reported at the key uranium enrichment site in Iran's central region. This as per the Iranian state TV. This is a statement that's come out by the Iranian state TV. We are sifting through all the information that is coming in from the region. According to reports, the Natanz facility, it's a key part of Iran's nuclear program with both above ground and underground sections housing centrifuges for uranium enrichment, which was a key bone of contention even in the nuclear talks between the United States and Iran. From what it appears at the moment, it's going to be a difficult balancing act for the United States. Trump has called a meeting with the security chiefs today to discuss this recent escalation between Israel and Iran. On the other side, we do know that Israel is very much prepared for counter-strikes. It has declared a state of emergency. Its chiefs have warned of a response from Iran as well. Lieutenant General Ayal Zamir has said on Friday that the military strike on Iran may not achieve absolute success and has warned the citizens to prepare for a potential Iranian response. Susan, of course, as I mentioned earlier as well, this is the latest that's coming right now. There's a lot of information that's coming from the region. As per the Iranian state TV, another blast has been reported at a key uranium enrichment site. We've discussed this already. Israel has said that it is not going to stop. To what end can it continue this escalation? That is a question that remains to be answered, as well as what role and to what extent the United States will get involved in this escalation in West Asia and how much it can defend Israel, given its history of vehemently backing Israel in the past as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely valid. And remember, the United States has more than 40,000 active troops, active duty troops in the Middle East region. This is not, near hundreds. These 40,000 across the region. So right now, those 40,000 U.S. personnel, despite the fact that Marco Rubio noted that Israel acted unilaterally, their lives are in danger right now, and they are on high alert. And then, of course, you have the USS Vincent, which is in the Arabian Sea. That ship is equipped with F-35 fighter jets on the part of the United States. And then you have also the news, as you mentioned, that the United States started evacuating its personnel starting yesterday, Wednesday, after there were reports that Israel might indeed attack Iran in earnest, despite reports again that President Trump had apparently told Benjamin Netanyahu to hold off. There were so many of us who thought that this strike, should it happen, would happen possibly after this weekend, because Iran's foreign minister was due to meet with U.S. top officials in Oman to discuss the nuclear deal. And if you hear Donald Trump speaking, although he did say, an attack is very likely coming from Israel, he also was saying that there has been progress made to a certain extent in those nuclear talks. So this attack came really as a surprise. What's going to happen with those nuclear negotiations between the United States and Iran, that's anyone's guess. We still don't know if they're on, they're off in Oman. They were expected to happen on Sunday.
Right. All right, Susan, thank you so much for bringing us the latest on this. We'll, of course, continue to track all developments on this front. And breaking news coming in from West Asia. The situation here is evolving by the minute. The Israeli army chief has warned of an Iranian response. Israel's army chief, Lieutenant General Ayal Zamir, said on Friday that the military strikes on Iran may not achieve absolute success and warned citizens to prepare for a potential Iranian response as well.
He said, and I'm quoting him here, "I can't promise absolute success. The Iranian regime will attempt to attack us in response. The expected toll will be different to what we are used to." This is what Zamir said in a statement, while calling the strikes on Iran a historic campaign unlike any other.
Also, of course, this is the latest that has just come in. Israel is anticipating a response from Iran. US President Donald Trump, on the other hand, is set to convene a meeting with his security chiefs today to discuss the recent Israeli airstrikes on Iran.
According to the White House, the US President Donald Trump will convene a meeting of his National Security Council at 11 a.m. local time. The operation, dubbed Operation Rising Lion, targeted key parts of Iran's nuclear and military program, including nuclear enrichment facilities and ballistic missile programs.
Of course, lots of reports are coming in. As I mentioned earlier, it's a fast-moving situation. Everything remains dynamic at the moment. There are some Iranian state media reports as well of blasts being heard in a key uranium enrichment site in Iran. We are, of course, trying to sift through all the information that is coming right now. From what we know so far is that at the moment, Israeli army chief has warned of an Iranian response. He has said that I can't promise absolute success. On the other side, in the United States, Trump is set to convene a meeting with the security chiefs to discuss the recent Israeli airstrikes on Iran. And for the latest now, we're being joined by a correspondent, Susan Tehrani from New York. Susan, what can you tell us?
So Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that the United States was not involved in the strikes, but warned Iran not to target U.S. forces. Of course, as you mentioned, we're hearing numerous reports coming in from possible assassination attempts on the generals of Iran. But what's noteworthy is we're also hearing reports that President Trump told Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday, in not so many words, not to attack Iran when Netanyahu raised the possibility of strikes in a phone conversation with President Trump. This is according to U.S. officials. Trump responded that he would like to see diplomacy run its course before turning to military options. But then we saw how fast things developed on Wednesday. U.S. pulled some of its non-essential personnel out of the region in case of an attack. I also want to note that right before the strikes, just a few hours before, Israel's Consul General said that the U.S. and Israel recognize a common threat. This was in an interview that hasn't been completely published yet on the Wall Street Journal. He said that the Western world has to decide, do you want the Ayatollah or do you want Western civilization, basically indicating that the United States and Israel are on the same page. As you mentioned, President Trump is going to meet with top administration officials and his cabinet officials at 11 a.m. tomorrow. We have reports that he's also meeting with his top brass earlier tonight. We'll have to see. Ultimately, the big question is, should Iran decide to retaliate, what role the United States is going to play in that?
Right, Susan, it is a crucial moment, and we know that Iran has warned Trump that if Israel strikes its nuclear facilities, U.S. would be responsible. And not just that, but Iran is threatened to retaliate with a counterattack not only in Israel and targeting Israeli infrastructure, but also on American military bases in Iraq. Now, with this meeting, what are we expecting? How is this conflict going to pan out?
Yeah, that's a very valid point. And again, we're trying to get confirmations right now, but there are reports that there were explosions heard in and around the Iraqi capital, Baghdad. There are concerns that U.S. personnel might be targeted. Again, we don't have confirmation regarding this, official at least, but these are according to some media reports in the region. The most important and pressing question, of course, as you mentioned, is how is it going to pan out? To what extent will the United States stand by Israel should Iran decide to retaliate? But also we are hearing reports that these Israeli strikes have not ended. And Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, has indicated that it will last as many days as possible until the targets that they have in mind are eliminated. Now, are those targets just infrastructure, or are they talking about targets about individuals inside Iran as well?
Right, Susan, and we're also getting reports that new blasts are being heard at key uranium enrichment sites in Iran center. And of course, that aligns with what Netanyahu is saying, that they're not going to back down until they reach the logical conclusion. So how do we expect the situation to develop further? And because there's no sign of backing down, at least from Israel, and a retaliatory missile and drone attack from Iran is imminent if anything changes after the meeting with Trump, of course.
Right, and we're again hearing this through Iranian media and Israeli media, and we're trying to really, figure out which statement is official. But Iranian media is reporting that Iran is ready in a few hours from now, any minute, to declare official war against Israel. Now, that itself would, of course, be kinetic. It would be very vast once that declaration is met. We haven't, again, heard that from Iranian officials, but we are seeing these reports circulate inside Iranian media. again, as you mentioned, we're also hearing reports that Israel continues to carry out its attacks even as we speak, not only around Tehran, but also in places like Tabriz and other cities around Iran where there are reported nuclear facilities. Remember, some of these nuclear facilities we know of. We know Natanz, we know Fardo, but there are other nuclear sites that Iran has not declared, hence, causing that International Atomic Agency report today, which officially said that Iran is not complying and cooperating with UN inspectors.
Right, absolutely. And just for our viewers, let's just get you the latest that is coming in from West Asia at the moment.
In light of the recent events, Israeli ambassador to the UN, Dani Danon, has stated, and I'm quoting him here, the state of Israel launched Operation Rising Lion tonight against Iran's nuclear and missile infrastructure with the aim of eliminating an existential and immediate threat to the citizens of Israel and the entire world. The Iranian regime is blatantly violating international agreements, advancing towards nuclear weapons and operating a regional terror network. When the world is silent, Israel is acting. I call on the UN Secretary General and the members of the Security Council. This is a moment to make moral decisions. Stand by Israel or you will be partners in a dangerous silence. Unlike in the past, today we have a state, we have an army, and we are not waiting for those who want to destroy us to surprise us. And for latest, we're now being joined by our correspondent Susan Tehrani from New York. Susan, what can you tell us and how do we anticipate this situation to pan out going forward in light of all these latest developments that we're seeing?
Well, we're now hearing reports that Iran has activated its air defense systems. So the question remains whether or not there have been further attacks as we speak right now, your morning or evening, Iran's early morning in and around Tehran, or is this in other sites in other cities? We'll wait for confirmation regarding that. As you mentioned, we just moments ago got a statement from Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Dani Danon, calling on the UN Security Council members to stand by Israel. This is a moment to make a moral decision. Stand by Israel or you will be partners in a dangerous silence. So we'll keep you updated on what happens at the United Nations and at the Security Council tomorrow, which is Friday. The latest that we know is that President Trump is expected to meet his cabinet at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. And also, there are conflicting reports right now. Reuters is reporting that Israeli officials said that President Trump and his administration were indeed aware and privy of these Israeli attacks against Iran. On the other hand, we're hearing the Wall Street Journal say that it was President Trump who on Monday talked to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel and asked him to hold off on these attacks, notably at least until after nuclear negotiations that were expected to be held on Sunday in Oman.
Right, Susan, and we're also hearing from Iran's Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who has said that Israel will receive a harsh punishment. And we know that the escalation is nowhere near de-escalating. It's only going to escalate, if at all, from this point onwards. And in what form and shape do we expect this escalation to actually manifest?
Israeli officials are saying that Iran is planning on deploying some 600 missiles towards Israel. Now, this is according to Israeli sources. We, of course, don't have that confirmation coming from Iran. U.S. officials, the last time we heard was from Marco Rubio, who said that Israel decided to act unilaterally. The response is highly unlikely to take, for example, 12 days like it did last year during the Biden administration, where President Biden and the Biden administration, the United States indeed did help Israel in its air defenses. It's yet to be seen how the United States is going to be involved. For now, it appears that it's managing expectations and saying that this was a unilateral attack, but should Israel get attacked by Iran, will the United States step in or not? And also it's important to note that right now about 40,000 U.S. troops are stationed in and around the Middle East region. The USS Vincent is in the Arabian Sea. It is equipped with F-35 fighter jets. So the United States is on high alert, and this, of course, comes amid Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth recently saying that non-essential personnel and their family members were evacuated yesterday from the region and key sites.
So this could escalate very well into an all-out war. The Iranian media was saying that the Islamic Republic is going to declare an all-out war against Israel in the coming hours, but it appears that their top brass and military officials are currently meeting right now.
Right, Susan, and we know that even though the U.S. is saying that Israel acted unilaterally, but there will always be speculations given the history that U.S. has had with Israel and the fierce support that is lended over the years in all the conflicts that have been panning out in West Asia. And now with both the sides not willing to back down and it's only going to escalate further, how do we expect Washington to actually balance these two conflicting sparring parties going forward? And how is this meeting actually going to chart out the course for the next action that we are expected to see?
Yeah, this is such an active situation right now. It's hard to imagine that there's going to be any sort of cooling down, especially considering the fact that there are incoming reports that Iran's top brass generals have possibly been killed during these strikes, so it wasn't just infrastructure sites. I do want to say that it's also important to note that we are hearing from the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, that it is closely monitoring this situation in Iran. The agency can now confirm that Natanz site was among the targets. As you know, and as our viewers know, Natanz is Iran's main nuclear site. And the agency is also in contact with Iranian authorities regarding radiation levels. So now the question is whether or not there was any kind of radiation released from these attacks. The reason I'm mentioning all of these is because all of these lead to how Iran will decide to retaliate. We know there's going to be a retaliation. We do know that the United States has said that it's going to stand by Israel. It's said it countless times, numerous times. And we also know that Israel's air defense is not going to be able to handle a barrage of missiles coming from Iran, if that's the case, without U.S. support. Nonetheless, let's wait for President Trump and see how he's going to try to, manage this situation. As you mentioned, tomorrow morning, I think we're going to hear a lot more about where the United States stands. But, these coming hours are going to be very crucial because, again, you ask about how is this going to develop. Are American personnel, notably in and around Iraq, are they going to be a target by Iran in the coming hours? Are they going to be hit in any sort of way where the United States then has no choice but to retaliate because its troops and its infrastructure was targeted by Iran?
Right, Susan, retaliation is imminent. We've heard from Iran, and the armed forces have said that they are going to take a strong response, and it's going to be quite catastrophic. This is our understanding of the situation, and it's all following up from also from what we've heard from the spokesperson for the General Staff of the Armed Forces, who stated that the armed forces will certainly respond to the attack and warned that Israel will pay a heavy price along with the United States. That's also been roped in. Now, how do we anticipate that Israel is going to tackle the situation? We already know that the airspace has been closed, schools have been shut in preparation, but what other preparations are in place to handle an attack like that? Because it was Israel who started it and they have called it a preemptive attack. So just help us understand what kind of arrangements are in place to tackle the situation.
Right, so we do know that the security situation in Israel is on high alert. The airspaces have been closed in both countries. Of course, it's a state of emergency across Israel, notably in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. But I also want to note that within the U.S. administration, and even some staunch Trump supporters, they say that this is Israel's war. They don't want the United States to get involved. We're also hearing from a number of Democratic senators and congressmen who have come out and said that they've essentially condemned Israel's attack against Iran, saying that this is no way to go about it. We don't want the United States to be involved. So you have the Democrats, you have the isolationists in Trump's camp who don't want to have anything to do with this. But as you mentioned, it's very hard to imagine how the United States is going to react. I think we have to first see how Iran is going to retaliate, and then we'll get a better understanding on how the United States is going to react. But it seems that because Israel had plans for this strike, then they are anticipating some kind of retaliation, and it appears that the Israeli army and reserve are on a state of high alert, and they're prepared for what's to come, at least in the first round of retaliations from Iran.
Right, Susan, and we've heard from the United States where they're trying to divorce themselves from the latest conflict that's brewing, and they've said that Israel has acted unilaterally, which there are public speculations about that. And how is U.S. actually going to make sense of the situation is yet to be seen. But what's your assessment of the conflict going, which is escalating right now, and how do we see it panning out in terms of the optics, the global optics, and Washington's role in this conflict?
So President Trump was sort of talking about how he wanted these negotiations to really go through. Of course, he wanted some kind of deal with Iran. But I think it was clear that the Trump administration had a very different approach than, for example, the Obama administration when they started the JCPOA and the nuclear deal that went on and on for years and ultimately, was undesirable, and even U.S. officials and Capitol Hill wasn't able to get behind it, and President Obama was ultimately forced to sign it as a treaty because Congress was no way going to back some kind of Iran nuclear deal, even though, the United States was involved in those negotiations. President Trump hoped to reach some kind of agreement with Iran, but in May, and I think it was around May 20th, the Iran supreme leader came out and said that he was very pessimistic when it came to these kinds of negotiations with the United States, notably the Trump administration. So while President Trump would come out in public, and the optics was that he was hoping to get close to a deal with Iran, it just appeared that the two sides keep getting further and further apart. And ultimately, I think that Israel, had given sort of this ultimatum to the United States that we're just running out of time, and Israel is going to ultimately attack Iran. I think the optics right now is, at least for now, the United States appears to say that this was a unilateral attack. Whether or not they were informed or not, we'll have to wait and see what concrete statement, if any, is ever going to come out. But again, it's very hard to imagine that the United States is not part of this conflict in one way or the other, despite the fact that it was hoping to negotiate some kind of nuclear deal. Now, European countries, their approach has been different. They say that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon under any circumstances. They believe that negotiations is the best path forward. Whether or not they'll side with Israel's attack, I think it'll depend on country to country. But I think that once we have daylight here in the United States and in the West, Europe as well, I think you're going to try to see these European leaders come together and try to call for some kind of restraint. I do anticipate some kind of United Nations Security Council meeting in the near future, if not tomorrow, perhaps during the weekend. But nonetheless, I think that the international community is going to try to come together to put a lid, at least on these military attacks, because this can really pan out into an absolute catastrophe. Again, I think it's very noteworthy that the IAEA came out with a statement saying that we're monitoring radiation levels. That means that there's a concern that some kind of radiation can be released due to these Israeli attacks on Iranian nuclear sites.
Right, Susan, you rightly pointed out now with the IAEA's new statement, and it's come from the Director General, Rafael Mariano Grossi, who has said that IAEA is closely monitoring the deeply concerning situation in Iran. The agency can confirm Natanz site among targets, and the agency is in contact with Iranian authorities regarding the radiation levels, which is a clear marker that there are going to be serious escalation in this conflict going forward. And we're also in contact with our inspectors in the country. This is what Grossi has said. And once again, to reiterate for our viewers, the latest that we're getting is from IAEA Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi, who has said that, and I'm quoting him here, the IAEA is closely monitoring the deeply concerning situation in Iran. The agency can confirm that Natanz site, among other targets, were hit. The agency is in contact with Iranian authorities regarding radiation levels, and we are also in contact with our inspectors in the country. This is the latest we're getting in the conflict that's brewing in West Asia. Latest that we're getting, Iranian media reports confirm that a senior Revolutionary Guards commander and prominent nuclear scientist were among those that were killed in Israel's recent attack on Iran. Major General Ghulam Ali Rashid, who's a high-ranking commander, was reportedly martyred. Well, according to state television, and additionally, nuclear scientists Mohammad Mehdi Tehranchi and Fayardun Abbasi were targeted and killed in the attacks. This is reported by Tasneem News Agency. This is the latest we're getting from the conflict that's brewing in West Asia. And we have reports from the Iranian media that have confirmed that a senior Revolutionary Guards commander and a prominent nuclear scientist were among those that were killed in Israel's recent attacks on Iran. Now, among those killed were Major General Ghulam Ali Rashid, who's a high-ranking commander, and he was reportedly martyred in the conflict. Now, according to state television, additionally, nuclear scientists Mohammad Mehdi and Fayardun Abbasi were targeted and killed in the attack. Well, this as per reports by Tasneem News Agency. We've also heard from Iran Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who has said that Israel will receive a harsh punishment. This according to state TV, and Iran's Khamenei warns that Israel faces bitter and a painful fate. And we're getting more reports from Iran and from the Iranian media. We're getting this report that confirms that a senior Revolutionary Guards commander and a very prominent nuclear scientist were among those who were killed in Israel's recent attack on Iran. Now, we also know that Major General Ghulam Ali Rashid, who's a high-ranking commander, he was reportedly martyred, according to state television. And that's not all. We also know that nuclear scientists Mohammad Mehdi Tehranchi and Fayardun Abbasi were also targeted and killed in the attack, as reported by Tasneem News Agency.
All right, beginning with the fast-moving situation and the evolving situation in West Asia, let's bring you the latest. People in Tel Aviv are stocking up on essentials amid fears of Iranian retaliation. This as a fresh wave of explosions were heard in Iran's capital, Tehran. You know, Israel has carried out Operation Rising Lion in Iran, and this is the latest that is coming out from there. People in Tel Aviv are now stocking up on essentials amid fears of an Iranian retaliation. An emergency has been declared in Israel as well, just to brace for what's to come going forward. Fresh wave of explosions could be heard in Iran's capital. This is part of Israel's Operation Rising Lion. We did hear earlier Netanyahu saying that they will continue with this barrage of, and to what end, that is something that remains to be seen as well. Multiple statements have been coming out. People in Israel at the moment are stocking up on essentials. Now, the UN nuclear watchdog also confirmed that Israeli strikes were targeting the Iranian uranium enrichment site, saying that it was closely monitoring the deeply concerning situation here. IAEA is closely monitoring the concerning situation in Iran. Agency can confirm the Natanz site was among the targets. This is what we do know so far. As per the IDF Chief of General Staff, we have begun this operation because the time has come. We are at the point of no return. We cannot afford to wait for another time to operate. We have no other choice. Recent and past events of the history have taught us that when the enemy is attempting to destroy us, we must not turn a blind eye. We need to fight for our existence. Freedom was given to those willing to fight for it. I warn that anyone who will try to challenge us will pay a heavy price. We are entering this operation together with one goal in front of us, and that is to secure a safer future for the state of Israel and its civilians in a unified effort and faith. We will win. This is the statement that's coming out of Israel. Now, from what we do know is that Israeli airstrikes targeted 3 military sites in Iran's northwest. This as per the state television in Iran. 3 military sites in the East Azerbaijan province were attacked by the Zionist regime, is what they're calling it. And what we do know so far, Tel Aviv is stocking up on essentials amid fears of Iranian retaliation. Let's also take a look at what has happened so far, all that has transpired. Let's just bring you a timeline. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei warned that Israel would suffer severe consequences after launching the deadly attacks on the Islamic Republic, including Tehran and the nuclear sites. Khamenei said, with this crime, the Zionist regime has set itself for a bitter and painful fate, and it will definitely receive it. This as fresh wave of explosions could be heard in Iran's capital. Iranian media confirmed that Iran's Revolutionary Guards leader Hossein Salami had been killed in the strikes. Apart from that, senior Revolutionary Guards commander Gholam Ali Rashid and top nuclear scientists were killed in Israel's attack on Iran. The state TV reported fire and smoke at a key site for Iran's Revolutionary Guards, while explosions were heard in Natanz city in Iran's central province. Now, according to the state media, residential buildings in Tehran were also hit, killing a number of civilians here, including women and children. Israel carried out strikes against Iran, targeting its nuclear and military sites after US President Donald Trump warned of a possible massive conflict in the region. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Israel's operation struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program, taking aim at the atomic facility in Natanz and nuclear scientists. He said that the operation against Iran will continue as many days as it takes.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program. We targeted Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz. We targeted Iran's leading nuclear scientists working on the Iranian bomb. We also struck at the heart of Iran's ballistic missile program.
Air traffic was halted at Tehran's main international airport, Imam Khamenei, while neighboring Iraq has also closed its airspace and suspended all flights at all airports. Israel declared a state of emergency, likewise closing its airspace, with Defense Minister Israel Katz saying retaliatory action from Tehran was possible following the operation. So this is what we do know so far. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei in the latest has warned that Israel will suffer severe consequences. This after Israel launched deadly attacks on the Islamic Republic. Preemptive strikes against Iran here, as you can see the map on your screen right now as well. Uranium enrichment facility was struck in Natanz city. Iran Revolutionary Guards commander's site hit in Tehran as well. Now, the Supreme Leader has said that with this crime, the Zionist regime has set itself for a bitter and painful fate, and it will definitely receive it. This is fresh wave of explosions have been heard in Iran's capital. Iranian media has also confirmed that Iran's Revolutionary Guards leader, Hossein Salami, has been killed in the strikes. So this is the news that's coming in right now. Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei says Israel will receive a harsh punishment. State TV, during the State TV address, Iran's Khamenei also warned Israel and said that it faces a bitter and painful fate. This in the aftermath of the Operation Rising Lion, where Israel has struck multiple targets inside Iran. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has warned that Israel would suffer severe consequences, including after it launched deadly attacks on the Islamic Republic, including in Tehran and nuclear sites. Fresh wave of explosions were also heard in Iran's capital after that. Iranian media has confirmed that Iran's Revolutionary Guards leader Hossein Salami has been killed in the strikes, and apart from that, senior Revolutionary Guards commander Gholam Ali Rashid and top nuclear scientists were also killed in Israel's attack on Iran. The state TV reported fire and smoke at a key site for Iran's Revolutionary Guards, while the explosions were heard in Natanz city on Iran's central province. Earlier, we were also getting reports of there not, at least for now, being any contamination, any nuclear contamination near the sites which were targeted by Israel. If we were to just once again take a look at the statement that came out of the UN nuclear watchdog, the UN nuclear watchdog has confirmed that Israeli strikes were targeting an Iranian uranium enrichment site, and they are closely monitoring the deeply concerning situation. They've said that the IAEA is closely monitoring the situation. The agency can confirm that the Natanz site was among the targets hit. Even from the IDF side, this has been confirmed. And Iranian media reports have also confirmed that the senior Revolutionary Guards commander and prominent nuclear scientist were among those killed in Israel's recent attack on Iran. Major General Gholam Ali Rashid, the high-ranking commander, was reportedly killed, according to state television. Additionally, nuclear scientist Mohammad Mehdi Tehranchi and Faryuddin Abbasi were targeted and killed in the attack, as reports by Tasnim news agency. Of course, we are sifting through all the reports that are coming out of this region. These are the official statements that we're hearing, or the state-run media statements that we are getting you right now. Iran has confirmed the deaths of general and also scientists at the site which was targeted by Israel, Natanz. Iranian media has reported that a senior Revolutionary Guards commander and prominent nuclear scientist were among those killed in Israel's recent attack on Iran. Major General Gholam Ali Rashid, a high-ranking commander, was reportedly killed, as per the state television. Additionally, nuclear scientists Mohammad Mehdi Tehranchi and Faryuddin Abbasi were targeted and killed in the attack, as reported by the Tasnim news agency. Earlier, we also got a statement from Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who said that Israel will receive harsh punishment. Iran's Khamenei has warned that Israel faces a bitter and painful fate. Now, IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi said that the IAEA is closely monitoring the deeply concerning situation in Iran. Agency has confirmed the Natanz site among the targets. The agency is in contact with Iranian authorities regarding the radiation levels to monitor if there's any nuclear contamination. They've also said that we're in close contact with our inspectors in the country. So that is where things stand at the moment. The IAEA Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi has said that IAEA is closely monitoring the deeply concerning situation in Iran, and the agency can confirm that Natanz site was among the targets. Let me just read out the statement. The agency can confirm Natanz site was among the targets. The agency is in contact with the Iranian authorities regarding the radiation levels, and we're also in contact with our inspectors in the country. For more on this, we're now being joined by Ruthie Bloom, former advisor at Office of Prime Minister Netanyahu, author, award-winning columnist as well. Of course, I want to begin by asking you what your assessment of Israel's Operation Rising Lion is. Ms. Bloom, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Right, so I just wanted to understand what your assessment of Israel's Operation Rising Lion is, all that has transpired so far.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right, so this is the latest that we do know so far. That Iranian media's reports have confirmed that a senior Revolutionary Guards commander and prominent nuclear scientist were among those killed in Israel's recent attack on Iran. Major General Ghulam Ali Rashid, the high-ranking commander, was reportedly killed, this as per the state media. Additionally, nuclear scientists Mohammad Mehdi Tehranchi and Feruddin Abbasi were targeted and killed in the attack, as reported by the Tasnim news agency. Israel has launched its Operation Rising Lion, in which it targeted sites in Tehran as well as nuclear facilities. It said that the aim was to hit Iran's nuclear power, as well as this wasn't retaliation to Iran's repeated aggression. If I were to just read out the statement of the IDF Chief of the General Staff, we have begun this operation because the time has come. We are at the point of no return. We cannot afford to wait for another time to operate. We have no other choice. This is the statement that I'm reading out. Recent and past events of history have taught us that when the enemy is attempting to destroy us, we must not turn a blind eye. We need to fight for our existence. Freedom was given to those willing to fight for it. I believe we have Ms. Ruthie Bloom back online with us. Ma'am, I hope you can hear me now.
I can.
Right. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No. Would you like me to answer about what Israel is doing, or my assessment about whether this is a good thing for the world?
I want to first understand what your assessment of what's happened is.
Okay, what's happened is that Israel clearly has been planning this for a very long time, and while President Trump was attempting to negotiate with the Iranians about their having two choices, either that they destroy their own nuclear facilities and stop enriching uranium, or that they would be attacked. He didn't specify whether Israel would attack or the United States, but we know that Israel has been warning for a very long time that that nuclear enrichment of uranium has reached dangerous levels, the point of no return, as the IDF Chief of Staff said, because according to the International Atomic Energy Agency, Iran already has enriched uranium for enough for about 9 or 10 nuclear bombs.
Right, absolutely. And that being said, of course, you mentioned that the United States was in talk with Iran when it came to the nuclear talks as well. Iran had made it clear that enrichment of uranium, that is a red line, and that is something they were not willing to negotiate on, and that remained a bone of contention as well. You're also right to say that Israel had given a warning in the lead up to this as well. That being said, from where things stand right now, how do you see things unfolding going forward?
Well, I see in the bigger picture that the Iranian people are probably relieved that this will give them the opportunity to overthrow their regime. That's in the bigger picture. In the immediate term, I think we're going to see a few days of more attacks, and also Israel is anticipating a retaliatory strike from Iran. What we do know so far, or reports are, that Iran attempted to fire a bunch of missiles at Israel, but Israel intercepted them before they left Iranian airspace. However, all Israelis have been warned to stay very near their bomb shelters, and tomorrow there's going to, and Friday, no school, no work. People are advised to stay off the roads and stay near shelters, because Israel is anticipating a serious retaliatory strike from Iran.
Right, and just to expand on that further, I wanted to also understand what you see the scope and extent of United States involvement will be in the aftermath of this.
You know, I think that the United States has made it clear, and I think Israel has made it clear to the United States, that this is not a U.S. attack. However, it is done with U.S. tacit approval, at least. At least the U.S. did not prevent Israel from doing what it needed to do to, listen, it's an existential threat for Israel. It actually is an existential threat to the region and the whole world. But Israel is very close, is closer to Iran, and also Iran has specifically threatened to wipe Israel off the map. Now, the United States, as I said, I think has given tacit approval without actually participating in these strikes. Whether that will change in the near future, I don't know, but I think that it's clear that President Trump gave the green light to Israel to do what it had to do.
Right, and just on that, I also wanted to understand what your assessment of the strength and capabilities of all the sides involved as well, because we do know that Israel is fighting multiple wars on multiple fronts at the moment. So where does Israel stand when it comes to this?
Well, you know, it's interesting because back in October, Israel launched an attack on Iran that severely weakens its air defenses. And it was a very important strike because it made Iran vulnerable to this kind of attack. And meanwhile, also, Israel has totally decimated Hezbollah, an Iranian proxy, has been fighting against the Houthis in Yemen, another Iranian proxy, and is completely destroying Hamas in Gaza. Meanwhile, Syria has the Assad regime fell, and there's new, probably problematic leadership in Syria. But it is probably the best time for Israel in terms of the vulnerability of its enemies.
Right, and we have also heard the statement that came in from Iran, the statement by the Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. That being said, there is a state of emergency in Israel as well. People are stocking up on essentials. What will the coming few days look like?
I think it'll be very tense. With people, first of all, young children are scared when they hear sirens, naturally. Being in bomb shelters, some are nicer than others. Some people have bomb shelters actually in their homes or in their apartment buildings, and some people don't, and therefore they have to go to public bomb shelters. It's not pleasant, but I'll tell you, most Israelis believe that it's a necessity and that it's not only necessary for Israel, but for the whole Western world. And most Israelis would support this, and I think are cheering at this and hoping that it will be done without a major outbreak of war. I know people say it's going to escalate war in the Middle East, as though there hasn't been a Middle East war going on for now, close to 2 years as it is.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I wanted to ask you, we've also heard the statements that have come in from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who's made it clear that this operation will carry on for as long as it takes. To what end? One, that's the question. Secondly, would you say it's a stretch to call it an all-out war at this moment?
I think it's a stretch in the sense that it's not an all-out war between Israel and Iran. But what you could say is that since October 7th, 2023, when Hamas committed its massacre on Israelis, and Iran, all of its proxies began to fire missiles, etc., that you can say it's an all-out war, but not one that just started today. It's been going on, and as I said, the enemies, all the other proxies have been severely weakened. Iran itself has been weakened. Its economy is totally tanked. And the Iranian people are fed up. And so that is why the time is ripe. And therefore, I think that you're not going to see an escalation, but the opposite.
All right, Ms. Bloom, thank you so much for all your insights on this. Of course, it is a fast evolving situation. Things are changing by the minute. We are getting more and more developments. Thank you so much for joining us with your insights on this at this time.
And thank you for having me.
We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program.
مهار بشه دارن سعی
Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has warned that Israel would suffer severe consequences. This after launching deadly attacks on the Islamic Republic, including Tehran and its nuclear sites. Khamenei said that with this crime, the Zionist regime has set itself up for a bitter and painful fate, and it will definitely receive it. This as fresh wave of explosions could be heard in Iran's capital. The state TV said Israeli airstrikes targeted 3 military sites in Iran's northwest. Iranian media has confirmed that Iran's Revolutionary Guards leader Hossein Salami has been killed in the strikes. Apart from that, senior Revolutionary Guards commander Gholam Ali Rashid and top nuclear scientists were killed in Israel's attack on Iran. State television reported fire and smoke at a key site for Iran's Revolutionary Guards, while explosions were heard in Natanz city in Iran's central province. Now, according to the state media, residential buildings in Tehran were also hit, killing a number of civilians, including women and children. Israel carried out strikes against Iran, targeting its nuclear and military sites, after US President Donald Trump warned of a possible massive conflict in the region. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel's operation struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program, taking aim at the atomic facility in Natanz and nuclear scientists. He said the operation against Iran will continue for as many days as it takes.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program. We targeted Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz. We targeted Iran's leading nuclear scientists working on the Iranian bomb. We also struck at the heart of Iran's ballistic missile program.
Air traffic was halted at Tehran's main international airport, Imam Khamenei, while neighboring Iraq has also closed its airspace and has suspended all flights at all airports. Israel declared a state of emergency, likewise closing its airspace, with Defense Minister Israel Katz saying retaliatory action from Tehran was possible following the operation. People in Tel Aviv have stocked up on essentials or are in the process of stocking up on essentials amid fears of Iranian retaliation. Israel's Army Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir said Israel had no other choice but to carry out its attack against Iran, and that the military has recruited tens of thousands of soldiers in defense against an expected retaliatory attack. This is what we know so far. All right, for more on this, we're now being joined by Yusuf Jalali, journalist from Tehran. Thank you so much for joining us on WION World is One at this time. I want to begin by asking you what the situation is at the moment.
Well, of course, good morning. This has been by far the largest attack carried out against Iran from a foreign country in almost 4 decades, and since the end of the Iran-Iraq war back in the 1980s. So the Iranians actually woke up to ear-splitting sounds of explosions in the capital, Tehran, and several other cities. It came overnight, around 3 a.m. local time, of course, in Tehran and in the western cities of Tabriz and some mostly cities located on the western borders of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Of course, it targeted mostly military and nuclear sites across Iran, and as we speak, the attacks are ongoing, and the Iranian armed forces are trying to repel those airstrikes coming reportedly from some of the Iranian western neighbors, including Iraq. So this is unconfirmed, but we see on social media some unapproved and unconfirmed reports suggesting that the attacks are being carried out through the airspace of Iran's western neighbor, Iraq. So as I mentioned, they mostly targeted Iranian military and nuclear sites, including Parchin, which is a very large and highly protected military facility located in east of Tehran, and also Natanz in Isfahan. It's actually it's a celebrity name, Natanz. Israel has long been pushing to, of course, strike this major nuclear enrichment facility. It's an underground, highly protected nuclear facility in the city of Isfahan, located around 200 kilometers west of the city of Isfahan in central Iran. And so far, we've been hearing from Iranian officials Iranian nuclear officials that that complex, nuclear enrichment complex, has not been damaged because it is located deep underground, and Israel has only managed to scratch the surface and hit the surface of that nuclear facility. Of course, Israel has been justifying its attack on Iran by saying that Iran has been seeking to build a nuclear bomb. Israel has been for years, if not decades, been pushing for striking Iran to limit and of course, curtail Iran's nuclear capabilities. And recently, this mantra has been, we've been hearing such a mantra from Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister. He seems to be frustrated by how Trump is behaving Iran, how Trump is treating Iran with regards to those nuclear talks. So right now, the moment came and Israel finally struck Iran, allegedly to try to curtail and curb the Iranian nuclear capabilities. Of course, among the casualties, we've been hearing from official sources, including the Iranian state television, that women and children, civilians, have been among the casualties, despite claims by Benjamin Netanyahu that they seek to target Iranian key figures within the Iranian nuclear sphere and the military sphere. But of course, on top of the list is, as you also mentioned, is Major General Hossein Salami, who is the commander-in-chief of the IRGC, the Islamic Revolution Guards Corps. And we just heard that that the chief of staff of Iran's armed forces, General Bagheri, has also been confirmed dead, despite rumors that he has been still alive, and he was claimed to be heading the Iranian war room. Right now, we heard that his death has been confirmed officially. So Iran has not struck yet. Iran has been busy trying to repel those attacks by Israel. But as we heard from the Iranian Supreme Leader, the response will come and will be tough against Israel.
Right. Now, Mr. Jalali, just I'm seeking clarification here. You took the names of Hossein Salami, and there was a second name that you took. I believe I missed that. Could you just repeat that for us as well and our viewers?
Yeah, he's General Bagheri, who is Chief of Staff of Iran's armed forces. He's the highest-ranking Iranian military official.
Right. And of course, that being said, at the moment you've said that there have been casualties. You mentioned the big names as well. That being said, we were also talking about the United States, and we've been discussing this since the morning as well, that the United States and Iran had been engaged in nuclear talks. The nuclear facilities enrichment of uranium, that remained a bone of contention as well. That being said, how do you assess the scope and the extent to which United States will get involved now that this escalation has happened? And would you say at this point it may be a stretch to call this an all-out war, or is that what it's being assessed as?
Well, of course, it's already an all-out war right now, because Iran is constantly engaged in trying to push back and repel those inbound attacks from Israel. So Iran has vowed revenge, and Iran has declared a state of emergency across the country, as put by the Iranian Supreme Leader. So it is a war, actually. Iran has long been planning to launch its third operation against Israel, Operation True Promise 3. Everybody was waiting for that, but Israel called it a preemptive strike against Iran, trying to limit Iran's military capabilities before Iran would be able to launch any attack against Israel. So it is a war, definitely. And while everybody is calling for self-restraint, the United Nations, even we heard such comments from Trump. Trump is now inviting Iran to sit at the negotiating table. And as you mentioned, the sixth round of talks is pending. Actually, it's scheduled for the coming Sunday. But right now, as this war is happening, a level of uncertainty is now in the air. We cannot really predict how those negotiations will proceed, because Iran is most likely be engaged in a full-scale war with Israel, and the prospect for diplomacy here is fading, actually.
Right.
At least we can expect such a thing to happen.
All right, Mr. Jalali. Also just wanted some clarity on this. I mean, there is some premonition that may be required in that sense, but just going forward, of course, the world is watching with bated breath how things will unfold going forward, and also how you assess the capabilities of all the actors in this war.
by actors, who do you mean? Who are
I
you
mean
pointing
Israel
to?
and Iran as well as the United States going forward.
Well, of course, usually when such scenarios take place, different actors try to pitch in, try to settle the issues. But from the experiences in the past happening between Iran and Israel, we see that Iran's response always take place. Iran means what it says. And we heard from General Salami just 24 hours ago before his death. He made a very powerful speech in Tehran where he vowed that Iran is ready for any scenario and that Iran will strike back if Israel dares to actually attack and target Iran's nuclear facilities. But it has even stepped further. Israel, we see that as the footage speaks for themselves. Actually, the footages speak for themselves. We see that they have targeted not only the nuclear and military facilities, but some buildings, civilian buildings inside at the heart of Tehran, with some civilians being reported killed. So that leaves no room for doubt. Iran will respond, and as put by different Iranian officials, and you also reported that fact, Iran will respond, and that actually requires different actors, as you mentioned, including the United States, to try to settle the issue. But every attempt and any attempt will be made after Iran strikes back, and that is not an analysis, that is a report, and consider it as a fact, because Iran has already made its mind and will attack Israel.
Right, absolutely. We have heard those statements by the Iranian Supreme Leader as well, saying that Israel is in for a painful and a bitter fate. We've also heard statements from Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. He has made it clear that Israel will not stop and will carry on with its Operation Rising Lion for as long as it takes. What I am trying to understand is, to what end will we see this war carry on between the two sides? And what is the objective here?
If you take a look at the comments of Iranian officials in the past, they have unveiled some missile cities, underground missile cities. They have said that Iran will strike back with hundreds, if not thousands, of missiles. Iran has a very extensive military arsenal, some of which they claim have not been unveiled yet, and they have said that they will surprise Israel and, of course, the United States, because we see that some officials are pointing the finger of blame at the United States as well. They said that this is a joint effort by Israel and the United States, and they have said in the past that the American bases in the region, including those located in the UAE and in Saudi Arabia, would be a target if an attack from Israel took place, whether or not the United States be and stand by the Israeli side. And now we heard from Donald Trump just recently, like around minutes ago, that he said that any counterattack against Israel on the part of the Islamic Republic will require the United States to stand by the Israeli side. So that would be a full-scale war, not only against Israel, but also against the American bases located across the Middle East.
All right, Mr. Yusuf Jalali, thank you so much for joining us right now with your insights and with with your perspective on this. We know that the situation remains rather tense in Tehran at the moment. Thank you so much for joining us at this time.
Thank you for having me.
Now, President Trump has confirmed awareness of the Israeli airstrikes on Iran beforehand, stating that the US was not militarily involved. He's made that clear. But they did have information about these attacks beforehand. That is something that has come out now. In an interview with Fox News, Trump emphasized that Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb, something which he has reiterated over and over again. The hopes that Iran will return to the negotiating table. You know that this has broken out in the middle of negotiations between the United States and Iran. There have been multiple rounds of talks, and now Israel has launched Operation Rising Lion. Trump also mentioned that several Iranian leaders who were killed in the strikes, well, that's what he's saying, will not be coming back. So this is the latest on this right now. In the latest, we are saying that Trump has admitted to knowing of these attacks beforehand, but has made it clear that the United States was not militarily involved in this. So he has confirmed awareness of the Israeli airstrikes on Iran beforehand, stating that the US was not militarily involved. For more on this, we're now being joined by our correspondent Susan Tehrani from New York. Susan, that's a big admission that's coming in from the United States as well, where Trump has confirmed awareness of the Israeli airstrikes on Iran beforehand. However, of course, it's made its role clear in this as well, by which I mean that he's made it clear that the United States was not militarily involved. What can you tell us, Susan?
Right, this was a telephone conversation with one of Fox News' senior anchors, Brett Baer. He spoke to President Trump, and President Trump said that he was aware of the strikes beforehand. He said there were no surprises, but again made clear that the United States was not involved. He also said that he hopes Iran will return to the negotiating table, signaling that it appears the United States, for its part at least, thinks those negotiations on Sunday are going to happen. He also once again said that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. He also said that he spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu several times in recent days, and also that the Trump administration reached out to at least one key Middle Eastern ally to acknowledge that the strikes were going to happen, but again that the United States was not involved in these strikes. The president is looking to see if there is retaliation. CENTCOM is on high alert. And President Trump said that the U.S. will defend itself in Israel if Iran decides to retaliate.
Right, of course, we know that he's also called the National Cabinet Security meeting as well. That being said, just to understand this better, what do you think is going to be the United States response going forward and in the days to come?
So it appears that it's really going to depend on how Iran plans to retaliate. Some Israeli sources say that Iran is going to start that retaliation as early as the next 2 hours, but it'll depend on the scope of that retaliation. We did just hear from Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, who told the Israeli people that they should prepare for longer than just a few days for this conflict to continue. That really signals that it appears that Israel has this readiness for that retaliation. I do want to say that President Trump also said that the United States has replenished the Iron Dome missiles in recent weeks, and that U.S. officials confirmed that a number of top Iranian leaders are dead after that strike. And just the reason I'm saying this is because it just makes the layers of Iran's retaliatory measures perhaps a lot more complex than, if these were attacks simply on nuclear and military installations.
All right. Well, Susan, thank you so much for bringing us the latest on this. We'll, of course, continue to discuss this through the course of the day as well. Now, the Israeli Defense Forces released a statement revealing that Iran is promoting a secret program for technological progress in all areas of nuclear weapons development. Now, according to the IDF, senior nuclear scientists in Iran have been working